Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the CFL DFS video for week number 6. If you join me for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, this is how today's video will be structured. We'll be going over my CFL DFS sheet for week number 6, talking through each player that I do find relevant for this slate overall. I'll talk about whether or not I consider them a GPP option, a cash game option, a pay down option, a dart throw, and then kind of talking a little bit about if I'll be in line with the field, overweight to the field, slightly overweight to the field, underweight, or slightly underweight to the field. But without further ado, we'll get right into it with the Toronto Argonauts. So Cameron Dukes is still listed as the starting quarterback despite coming off a terrible 4-interception performance. I'll be underweight to the field on him, not really getting to him this week overall. It's a tough matchup against the Montreal Alouettes as well. Then a running back, Kadeem Carey, has pretty much taken over this backfield. He's $9,000, GPP option. I'm going to be slightly underweight to the field on him. I like that he's getting a lot of opportunities, although against this Alouettes defense, they have been pretty good against the run for the most part this season. And then we move down to the wide receivers. Rasheed Bailey, $3,900, pay down option. Probably slightly overweight to the field on him this week overall. Did have a good amount of targets last week. Demonte Coxie, $5,300, GPP option. Probably going to be in line with the field on him once again. The same three wide receivers on the 6-game injured list, DeJuan Brissett, Kevin Meidel, and David Unger III. Technically, Tommy Neal did go on the 6-game IL earlier today. He's out with a hand injury. Unger was able to practice in full this week, but remains out due to that hamstring injury. And then really not interested in Devarius Daniels. Janorian Grant, the returner, is up to $4,400 now, so pretty expensive for a return man, but obviously that is because he did score a touchdown last week. If you wanted to play like Richie Sanandini, you could. Makai Polk, if he gets a price tag on DraftKings, I would have like a little bit of interest in it as kind of a pay down option, but overall not getting into too much of this Argonauts team. Not really getting to their defense. Going to be underweight to them this week against the Alouettes. I think it's a pretty tough matchup, even though the Argonauts do have a pretty decent defense. Then on the Alouettes side, Cody Fajardo, $10,000. So he's getting up there in price tag. GPP option, probably going to be in line with the field on him once again this week. Walter Fletcher, running back, is at $8,000. I will say DraftKings finally kind of updated the price tag of a lot of these players overall. It's kind of the big update week, so you'll see that as we kind of talk through some of these players just in general. But for Fletcher, GPP option, I'm going to probably be in line with the field on him overall this week. Maybe slightly overweight. Just kind of depends on how people react to that $8,000 price tag, but he is coming off a very terrific week. At wide receiver, we got Tyson Philpott all the way up to $10,400. So I don't know that you can call him a cash game option anymore, but GPP probably slightly overweight to the field. We'll see how people react to that price tag overall. Then Julian Grant at $7,500. GPP option if you want to get there. We're going to be underweight to the field on him once again this week. And then we have Reggie White Jr. at $3,600. Pay down option if you really want to get there. Kind of hasn't done as much since his first game of the season. And then Tyler Snead still on that 6-game injured list. Cole Speaker, $4,100, quietly having a very productive season. GPP pay down option of $4,100 if you want to get there, slightly overweight to the field on him this week overall. Charleston Rambo did a little bit of something last week, but still not very interested in him at $5,800. You know, if you want to dart throw at James Lecter Jr. at $2,900 as the return man, you can definitely do that. And then Siabasu is still on the 6-game injured list as well. For the Alouettes defense, $4,700, most expensive defense on the week, GPP option. Slightly overweight to the field on them this week overall. I think most of these teams are kind of catching on to Cameron Dukes and this Toronto offense at this point in time. Then we move down to the Calgary Stampeders. We got Jake Maier at quarterback, $8,500. I got GPP with a question mark behind him. I know Stommy Stevens had that good week last week. Hopefully a bounce back week for Jake Maier just in general. Probably going to ultimately end up being in line with the field on him this week. And then at running back, Dedrick Mills missed last week due to a Blake injury. Was able to practice in full on Tuesday and Wednesday, so he is available for this game. Peyton Logan will remain up as BJ Emmons is out this week due to a hamstring injury. You know, if you want to play Dedrick Mills, you can as kind of a GPP option. I'm not quite there. I don't know if he's still 100%. Peyton Logan looked pretty good last week, so if you want to take a dart throw kind of shot at $5,300, you can do it. Probably a little bit more than I like to pay for him just in general, though. And then in terms of the wide receivers, their price tags didn't move quite as much. You know, Reggie Begelton, $8,800 GPP option. Probably going to be slightly overweight to the field on him this week. Cam Eccles-Looper looks like he should return this week. He was able to practice in full on Tuesday and Wednesday due to that calf injury and is technically listed as available. So he's a GPP option as well. Slightly underweight to the field on him this week. Ryson John, one of their wide receivers, mainly like big body guy, plays a little bit of special teams. Was able to practice in full on Wednesday and Tuesday due to that hamstring injury, but still remains out. And then Mark and Michelle, $5,100 cash game option. I think this week probably going to be overweight to the field on him once again. He's been really good to start off this season, especially in more recent weeks. Definitely do like the upside that he does provide. And this wide receiver room's kind of starting to thin out for the Stampeders, or at least narrow out in terms of the targets and the pecking order at this point in time. And then we move down to the Stampeders defense, $4,100 GPP option in line with the field. They're going against Winnipeg this week, so there's a little bit of opportunity there. I think Stampeders still have a pretty decent defense. If you want to be slightly overweight to the field on them, wouldn't have a problem with that at the same time as well. Then in terms of the Blue Bombers, I really don't know who's going to start at quarterback at this point in time. Zach Collaros is $9,600. Was able to practice in full all week due to that thorax/chest injury. He is listed as questionable. If he is unable to go, then it would be Chris Streveler, who did have some nice rushing upside last week. So either one would kind of be a GPP option, but probably going to be underweight to both guys just in general. If it's Streveler that ultimately ends up starting, maybe a little bit more in line with the field on him overall. Brady Oliveira, running back, $9,600. So we'll monitor his status, especially on the depth chart, because he didn't practice on Monday. Practiced in full on Tuesday and Wednesday due to that shoulder injury, but is technically listed as questionable. He did leave last week's game early and then did return, though, so not really too worried about him. If you want to roll him out as a GPP option, you can definitely do that at $9,600. I'm personally just waiting until we see that depth chart, which will be coming out tomorrow. I am recording this video on Wednesday for those of you that are watching it at a later date or a later time, however you want to phrase that. But, if Brady Oliveira is unable to go, then we would be looking at Johnny Augustine as a paydown option at $4,100. Michael Chris Ike, the fullback, $2,500. He didn't practice on Tuesday, but did practice in full on Wednesday. He's been dealing with a knee injury, but he is technically listed as questionable. Do they expect that he does ultimately end up playing this week overall? In terms of the wide receivers, it's mainly the same guys once again for me. Nick Dominski, GPP option, in line with the field if Zach Collaros is the starting quarterback this week, $7,200. Not a bad price tag whatsoever. And then Drew Wolters-Ziski at $4,200. GPP paydown option, slightly overweight to the field on him if Zach Collaros is starting this week. And then Kevin's Clericus, $3,000 potential paydown option if you want to get there. Don't really have much of a stand on him myself personally. Kenny Lawler, Dalton Shane, Cedric Wheatfall all still remain on that 6-game injured list. Ontario Wilson did a little bit last week, so maybe if you want to take a dart throw there, you can as well. And then the big news for them is that Lucky Whitehead did sign with their team this week. He has been placed on the practice squad. So we'll ultimately see whether or not he gets elevated for this week's game or if it kind of is for a future game just in general. But either way, he's not on DraftKings at this point in time. And then for that Blue Bombers defense, they're a paydown option if you want to get there at $3,800. Maybe slightly overweight to them against the Stampeders. If it's a bad Jake Mayer game, there is definitely some upside to be had there at the same time as well. Then we move down to the Rough Riders. We got Shea Patterson starting at quarterback once again, $8,800. Underweight to the field on him. There is some rushing upside there. He started out that game really terrible, but then did finish kind of strong. The lone touchdown, throwing wise, I at least should say, Samuel MLS really did all the heavy lifting on that one. Although, Shea Patterson did have a rushing touchdown later on in the game. He does have a little bit of rushing upside. So if you want to play him, I kind of understand it. I'm just not personally getting there this week overall. At running back, we got AJ Alouette, $8,800. GPP option, slightly overweight to the field on him once again this week. With Shea Patterson at quarterback, they're going to lean on the run game just a little bit more than they typically would. Behind him, we have Thomas Bertrand Hudson, $2,500. He was limited Tuesday, but was able to practice in full on Wednesday due to that head injury, that concussion that kept him out of last week's game. We'll see whether or not he's back this week or not, and then we probably see Frankie Hickson move back to the practice squad if he's available. And then at fullback, Bruno Labelle, $2,500 once again. Practiced in full on Tuesday, didn't practice on Wednesday due to that leg injury, so I really don't have much of a say on him just in general. Not really trying to play him either way, but don't expect him to play once again this week. And then Duncan Busby at wide receiver. He's been on the 6-game injured list. Was able to practice him full on Tuesday and Wednesday due to his hand injury, but still don't really expect him to play this week. Probably going to be more of a next week type of thing. At wide receivers, I'm not quite as interested in these guys as I typically was with Trevor Harris starting at quarterback, Shea Patterson. I maybe didn't discount that enough last week. So Sean Bain Jr. should return this week. He was able to practice in full on Tuesday and Wednesday. He was out last week due to personal reasons. So GPP option in line with the field probably on him this week overall. Samuel Alouettes was kind of the one lone guy that stood out last week. $4,500 pay down option if you want to get there. Probably in line with the field on him overall this week. Maybe slightly overweight. We'll just have to see how that all shakes out. Keyshawn Johnson did play better last week with Shea Patterson at quarterback, but $5,200. We'll see if he moves back to being a healthy scratch once again with Sean Payne Jr. back, though. Mitchell Pickton did get a couple targets with Patterson there. Patterson really favored some of the backup guys, or some of the second stringers or the lower end wide receivers, probably just because he has more chemistry with those guys. So it really wasn't too interesting. Keon Schaefer, Baker. Jerry Stearns really was a disappointment last week. He only had the one target, one catch for 26 yards. $4,600 GPP option if you want to get there. Probably in line with the field, maybe slightly underweight to the field on him this week. I really liked him quite a bit with Trevor Harris, but now Shea Patterson really ain't looking his way. In terms of the Rough Riders defense going against the BC Lions, I want no part of that, even though I think the Rough Riders defense is pretty decent just in general. And then we move down to those BC Lions. Vernon Adams Jr., $12,300, by far the most expensive quarterback once again this week. GPP option in line with the field on him, maybe even slightly overweight to the field on him once again this week. And then a running back, we have William Stanback, $7,800 GPP option. I have him listed as slightly underweight just because I think the field's going to be a little higher on him this week overall after a pretty good performance last week, but we'll just have to see how that all shakes out. Keon Hatcher, a wide receiver, was able to practice in full Wednesday due to the Achilles injury. So they did send Kieran Passant down to the practice squad earlier today. So I think Hatcher will be back this week. Kind of a GPP option if you want to get there. Maybe on a little bit of a snap count, maybe a little bit more limited than he would typically be coming off that Achilles injury, but still some decent upside there. I don't think I'm going to get to him until we at least see one decent game out of him just in general. So Javon Katoya at $3,300, I have listed as a pay down option with a question mark behind it because he popped up on the injury report today, not practicing due to a rib injury. So we'll see what that looks like the rest of the week. And then in terms of the other wide receivers, Alexander Hollins, $11,200 GPP option, probably in line with the field on him. And then Justin McInnis behind him, $10,000 GPP option. Probably going to be a little bit underweight to him this week overall after that big performance. I think a lot of people are going to be point chasing him this week overall. And I think Hollins is probably the better get there. And, if Keon Hatcher is back this week, that could affect kind of the whole wide receiver room just in general. And then we got Stanley Berryhill, $2,600. GPP pay down option if you want to get there. Probably going to be in line with the field on him overall this week, which probably, 2% of lineups. But still, if Javon Katoya were to miss, if Keon Hatcher's not back, then he probably looks a little bit better just in general. And then in terms of that Lions defense, $4,000. I got them listed as a cash game option with the question mark behind it. Will be overweight to the field on them. Just don't trust Shea Patterson at quarterback. I know BC has been a little bit hit or miss on defense so far this season, but I think there is a lot of opportunities for them in this game overall. And then we get down to the last game of the week. We got McCoy Bethel Thompson at quarterback for the Edmonton Elks. GPP option at $9,600. Overweight to the field on him. He's quietly had a nice start to the season. I do like the upside that he does have just in general. And I don't think the field's going to be getting to him quite as much as they probably should. I'm not really getting to Kevin Brown at $6,100 at running back. If you want to get there, I understand it. And Javon Lee, kind of a pay down option of $4,500. Probably in line with the field on him, slightly overweight to the field. Obviously, the returnability plus getting some snaps at running back has definitely helped him so far this season. I think it's a really reasonable price tag for him overall. In terms of the wide receiver room, with the updated price tags, I'm not really exactly sure how I'm playing this out, but Curly Giddens Jr., $6,900. GPP option in line with the field, maybe slightly overweight to the field on him this week overall. Monitored status of Hergy Mael, $5,900, was able to practice in full on Wednesday due to the hamstring injury. If he's able to go, consider him a GPP option, probably in line with the field on him. He had a very hot start to the year. If he's unable to go, then we can look at some Dylan Mitchell. We can look at some Arkell Smith, who had a really good game 2 weeks ago because they had their bye week last week. So keep his name in mind if, Hergy Mael is unable to go and if he stays up and doesn't get demoted back down to the practice squad. Then in terms of that Elks defense, I think they're still a little hit or miss. I think they have some upside, $3,200. Pay down option will be overweight to the field on them as they go against the Ottawa Redblacks this week. I think it should be a decent matchup for them overall. And then in terms of that Redblacks team, we got Dustin Crum probably starting at quarterback this week at $8,100. So I have GPP option. If he starts, probably in line with the field, probably expect the field to be probably, around like 46% on him just in general. But he does have that rushing upside that could pay off in a nice way. I think he ran for, 55 rushing yards in last week's game after replacing Drew Brown, who left the game with a concussion. Drew Brown was limited on Wednesday due to that head/concussion injury. And Jeremiah Masoli was able to practice in a limited fashion on Wednesday due to that Achilles injury that he's coming back from. So we'll see when he's ultimately able to return to this team, and then if he is the starting quarterback once he does ultimately make his return. In terms of the running back, we have Raquel Armstead here at $7,000. GPP option, slightly overweight to the field on him. He's been good all but 1 week so far, and he's really got some decent upside at that, running the ball, catching the ball, a lot of different ways that he can ultimately end up paying off. And then in terms of wide receivers, pretty much the same story as has been all season. Braylon Addison, $2,700. Pay down option, probably in line with the field on him. Justin Hardy, $9,700. GPP option, slightly overweight to the field on him after kind of a down week. And then Dominique Rhymes as kind of that other wide receiver, big name, but hasn't really produced so far this season. $6,200, underweight to the field on him overall. And then in terms of their Redblacks defense, I would consider them a GPP option at $4,400. I don't think their defense is that great, so I'm really not trying to pay up for that price tag. So I will be underweight to the field on them versus the Edmonton Elks. I think, the experience of McCoy Bethel Thompson will really help out the Elks in this game, and I think they're ultimately going to end up winning this game overall. The Tiger Cats are the lone team on the bye this week, so that's pretty much what I do have for the quick little rundown on my sheet for this week overall. As always, if you have any questions related to CFL DFS, feel free to drop them down in the comments section of this video. Definitely will respond back to you as quickly as possible. And then as always, I'll be listing all these starting depth charts as they do come out down in the comment section of this video, up on the Patreon as well. This sheet will be updated on Patreon, which is a very small monthly donation over there. If that's something you want to sign up for, definitely would encourage it. It helps kind of as you build out this process. It helps you to see kind of my thoughts on the slate as kind of it changes with injury updates, with depth chart updates, everything else like that. But anything that I do consider major will also be listed in the comments section of this YouTube video as well. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. It helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we have MLB DFS Monday through Friday in terms of the Core Pick live stream, which goes on 4:30 Central Time, 5:30 Eastern Time for the non-early MLB slates, and then the CFL DFS video coming out once a week, typically on Wednesdays, which is this video. So if you're watching this, I'm guessing that you're probably into CFL DFS and probably should be watching for future videos as well. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS, Prize Picks, and Parlay Play. If you're a brand new user on any one of those three sites, when you sign up, make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Prize Picks and Parlay Play, it's 100% match up to $100. And then for BetUS, it's 125% match up to $2,500 on your first three deposits. So some pretty great opportunities to be had out there. And then with that being said, if you have any other additional questions related to that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comments or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for this week's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day, no matter what day you're watching this on, a great weekend overall, and some pretty good luck in CFL DFS for week number 6.